So, physical evidence. What we've been talking about it. It's very important for analysis of crimes and for forensics. So, what can be used as evidence, and how is it used? These are just general ideas because different kinds of evidence are used in different ways. But just general ideas about how physical evidence works. The thing is, what is evidence? A lot of times, it just requires a person with a lot of experience to know exactly what might be evidence. It's more than learning in a class or reading a book. Sometimes you have to know what's going on that books and classes don't teach you. For example, you need a knowledge of the neighborhood. Let's say there's a neighborhood of people whose culture they absolutely abhor smoking. So if you know about the neighborhood, you're going to see if there's a cigarette, then that's a clue. That's a piece of evidence in the crime scene. So sometimes you have to know about the culture of people. And one of the reasons all these fictitious uh, detectives are so good is that they happen to know all these things, all these what might seem unimportant to everyone else, like Sherlock Holmes. Because today is a Tuesday, I know that he never went to the beauty parlor today. Whatever he came out with. But sometimes you just have to have a lot of experience in order to know what is or is not a clue, what is or is not something that should be considered evidence. Of course, there are nevertheless some ideas that we can all use, even though we don't have experience, certainly a starting place. Like, for example, bodily fluids and organs. Of course, I don't know if you're going to find an organ there, but you certainly might. We're not talking about Jack the Ripper, who used to send various organs and organ parts to the whoever Scotland Yard or whatever the British police were that were looking for him. But again, if you find them, that's certainly a clue. Sometimes documents and objects like serial numbers, depending on the crime. I mean, maybe it's a counterfeiting ring. Who knows? There's some documents that can be considered evidence. Drugs, again, that can certainly say a lot. Explosives, fibers. Of course, it's not illegal to have a fiber around, but sometimes fibers can connect. They can connect suspects to crime scenes. Fingerprints, of course, firearms and ammunition. Whether these are spent bullet casings or just unfired bullet casings. This evidence that can explain things about the crime. They have flammables around, especially in cases of arson. Glass shards are often useful as evidence, whether to connect one piece of glass to another or to show maybe forced entry or who knows what. A lot of possibilities. Glass is found everywhere. That's I don't know if we're going to get to that, but glass is its own form of evidence. Hair, okay, that connects people to the suspects to their locations, for example. Many things you do with hair. Impressions like bite marks, even footprints, tool marks. That's all. If a person burglarizes a place, you might be able to find his tool that he keeps in his home and relate it to the tool marks that are found on the burglarized home. Paint, also often found in vehicles when they crash, they leave paint behind. Plastic and rubber containers, well, did they contain drugs? Again, these are forms of evidence that someone at the crime scene should be collecting or should be analyzing or should be at least looking at. Some powder residues, again, what could it be? Gunpowder, drugs, it's something. Soil and dirt residue, especially where it doesn't belong. Where did this person come from? Where did the suspect come from? Who knows? Again, many, many possibilities. You give experience, you'll pretty much know what to look for in any individual case. We have vehicle lights. That's a bit of evidence. Whether or not you can collect the vehicle is a different story, but the lights can determine, for example, lights are on or off during an accident. The filament, when lights are on, they're often hot, and the filaments, they have a nice, if there's an accident, you'll see that the filaments are smooth because they kind of like melt where they break during an accident if they were on because they were hot. If the lights were off, then they're just going to break with a sharp break. So again, you can actually determine whether the person had their lights on or off. If they had their lights off, maybe they were the fault in this accident. Many possibilities. Vegetation, you see like leaves or wood shavings, at a crime scene, maybe that'll connect that to the suspect or the criminal who brought it in there. Or not. Again, many possibilities. There are many, many things that can be considered evidence, that can be considered clues, and it's not always easy to know what is or what isn't. It takes experience. But again, this is a decent list that if you're starting, this is something to look at, this is something to collect, this is something to pay attention to. So how are all these bits of evidence used? Well, we have to identify what the thing is. If it's an unknown powder, you can do a chemicals test to see if it's a drug or not. Or maybe it has someone's DNA on it. Sometimes there's more than one test, especially when it comes to drug tests. There are instant tests, just simple color tests that you do on them and say, oh yeah, this is marijuana. If you're not sure what this ground up piece of vegetation is, you can tell whether it's marijuana or not. But you sometimes need a confirmation test to prove that it really is the drug that you think it is. And sometimes that's a lot more specific than the initial test, which is faster. In any event, we want to know what the thing is. That in itself is a bit of evidence. Where did it come from? Also very important to know, first of all, maybe there are other criminals involved, and we know where this suspect came from if we know where this clue came from, where this piece of evidence came from. Very useful. We also can compare it to other places that it's found. The classic case is we have a suspect, and he has, let's say, a carpet fiber on him, and this carpet fiber was the same one found in the victim's house. So we can link the person to the crime scene. And other things also, alibis. He claims he was in a dance hall at the time. Well, do we see any, let's say, carpet fibers or stains on him or some evidence on him that show that he was actually somewhere else? So by comparing what we see and what we have as evidence, we can link people to crimes or their alibis. This is a very common way of working with crime scenes. It comes up quite a bit in court cases for many reasons. One of them is obvious, to connect the person to where he was, but one of the main things it's done is to back up the statement of the person on trial or the person being a witness. If he claims that he was standing up at the time, but we can show that he could not have been in the same room, he's lying. And that in itself is very important to unraveling, and solving a crime case. So it's used in a lot of different ways. What's very important is that a lot of these bits of evidence are evidence on a probabilistic way, meaning the probability dictates that certain things are true. So even if two clues can be identical, two carpet fibers, let's say, are found to be exactly the same. Let's say the suspect has a carpet fiber and the carpet fiber is found in the home in the crime scene. So that does not prove that this suspect was at the crime scene and he picked up the carpet fiber by sitting down on the carpet there. It doesn't prove it. It does show, however, it shows a probability. There is a high probability that he was there. Now, how high that probability is depends on a lot of things. So